So just if you're catching us live, we're doing our MLB Survivor Week 2 preview. Just a little, I guess, announcements. There's no NBA today because of the NCAA tournament. So we're going to do just the baseball. I don't know whether we're going to go after this as for a preview or we're just going to go live later. I don't know, but whatever we'll let you guys know. What were you thinking, Bobby?
Yeah, I would love to do a preview, even if it's
fine. I'm ready, so whatever.
Awesome, yeah.
Okay, so we'll do that, and then there's a little 3-game hockey slate, and that's pretty much it for today.
Yeah.
So last week we got extremely fortunate. We number one took the chalkiest team, and number two we went 0-2 to start off, and we were on our hands and knees to get it done, but somehow, some way, the Survivor gods were shining favorably upon us, and we took San Diego, and they ended up winning the last 2 games. So we did get through just by the hairs of our chinny chin chins. So we move on. The only other whatchamacallit, team that people picked that went down was Seattle. But that's obviously good news. So I want to kind of share when Bobby gets back. You there?
I'm here. I'm in here. Can you hear me?
Oh, I just don't see your face anymore.
I don't know what happened. It shut me down when I was trying to change the title of the thing. So let me.
Weird.
I'm back.
So just to give you a couple of things I wanted to alert you to here. So first of all, let's go back to the overview. Now again, there are 2 pools. One that got started last week, and the other one we're going to start this week. So just to give you guys there's a pick summary. So started with 180 people, 162 of them survived. And now we're moving on to week number 2. And what this site does, it's so funny. Like this one will show you kind of like the breakdown of who's playing who, 2 games, 4 games, or whatever it is, which is obviously really good to kind of look at. Now, I'll just show you what the other site gives you as far as Attorney Survivor. As far as data, what this will do, it will show you based on your pick, who's available. It'll give you the opponent's weighted win percentage. Now, again, through 3 games, it doesn't mean anything, but eventually it's going to show you, like who each team is playing and what their win percentage is. I mean, that's not particularly useful, but as it gets later in the season, that becomes somewhat useful. Now, the other thing I wanted to alert you to before we get on with this is there's one other really big difference between the 2 pools, and it's pretty sadistic because this first pool here, it was the one that gave us number 1, no strikes, like one team you mess and you're out. It also made us do a short week 1, which the other pool did not. And the other one, which is really, really cruel, is that this pool actually requires you to make a pick during All-Star Week when there are only 3 games.
Oh my God, that's brutal. Well, but good luck to getting to All-Star Week.
Well, no, people get to All-Star Week, but
some people will, but that won't be many.
The thing is, remember, going 2-2 is not that bad. Okay, so what we have to do really in advance is really plan out who we're going to want to have available on All-Star Week, because you'll look at, first of all, they're all 3 games, right? Mm-hmm. Every one of them's 3 games. And so I looked really quickly is the Cardinals are playing at home against the Nationals, right? So that would seem, at least at first glance, to be the one team that you probably want to save. You know what I mean? Right. So we have to remember that as we come in week by week, if it's between the Cardinals and somebody else, probably want to save them because, only having 3 games to work with is very, very difficult. And looking ahead, looking at the Mariners at home against Detroit, that could be one you might want to save. So this is something we always want to keep an eye on. So I just kind of noticed that this morning. The other thing I put up here as we go back to week number 2 is I also put up the DK Sportsbook, and they have the money line for actually 2 days, which is very helpful. Okay. So we'll be able to see who's favored, not just today, but for 2 days. The other thing that I did was just in preparation, I sent Bobby kind of a list of just again, what we're looking for is teams that are playing even number of games. So I listed all those, and we're able to knock out like a few of them kind of right away. Like Arizona's at San Diego and home against the Dodgers. Orioles are at Texas and home against the Yankees. Now, one other thing you have to keep an eye on, right? So if you're ever thinking of playing a team against Texas, remember you want to like make sure that you're not going to run into DeGrom, you know, and you might not notice it like in the first game, you know, because maybe he's not pitching the first game of the second one, but you really want to avoid, you know, targeting, I guess, Texas if you're going to have to deal with DeGrom. So the next thing I just wrote down some of these. I have like Red Sox. So this is what it says, like 3 at Detroit, home, and then home versus Pirates. Cubs 3 at Reds, 3 home versus Texas or whatever. And I just and there's like a whole just pile of them. Like, so Detroit, I put down, forget it. Colorado, so Colorado, even though they have 4 games at home against the Nationals, you just can't risk playing 2 games at Dodger Stadium first. You know what I mean? Like, you go 0-2, you're just kind of asking for trouble.
Not to mention, just to give a quick rundown, the average, you know, I'm weighting 5 different sites average in terms of projected wins. The Rockies are supposed to have the 3rd to worst record in the major leagues at 66 wins. So it's not like anytime they're ever going to look particularly good, even if they're against these Arizona teams, because the Arizonas are actually a pretty
well. But those are the times, by the way. I mean,
right.
Like we're going to have to take Colorado at some point. So we're going to look for the weeks where they're playing the Nationals, for example. You know, look for the weeks where they're playing, you know, Diamondbacks or something, because you are going to have to take everybody. So I'm looking through the others. So I guess Milwaukee. I'm like, which of these you want to like knock out right away?
Yeah, I think you want to knock out Milwaukee right away. I think you want to. I know that there's the Miami thing from Minnesota, who I think actually Minnesota's might end up being pretty decent this year, but I don't want to mess with Houston. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So wait. So Minnesota versus Houston, we're not doing that either.
Yeah, and the same thing with the Mets, because Milwaukee is kind of feisty, and the Mets just finished the series with Miami, just back-to-back series. I don't know. I just don't know. I don't love that, but I don't know. It's a tough week because I really eliminated all but 3 things as even being viable.
All right. Well, let's just kind of go through these. So Red Sox at Detroit, 3 at Detroit, home versus the Pirates.
I think we wait for the Red Sox only when they have 6 games at home. I really do. I just think they're a really bad baseball team. That's it. They're going to hit, and they have one of the worst rotations. Their defense is going to be horrible. Yeah.
Phillies 3 at Yankees. No thanks.
Yep.
This is the way we do these things. Houston, we definitely have to just look at for a minute. We'll get back to it. Texas 3 at home versus Ball. Texas, we just can't play them, I don't think, quite yet.
No, and I like the matchups for Texas, but it's not like first of all, I don't feel comfortable betting against the Orioles if I don't have to, and I don't think that you know, I do think the Cubs is an advantage, but playing in Chicago is a little bit of a downgrade because I don't know. I just feel like that at home that they're a little bit.
And you said you don't like the Mets, right? So we can get rid of that.
No Mets.
No Mets.
Possible with the Yankees playing Philly. I don't think we can do that either.
You don't want the Yankees at Baltimore than home against Philly. That's fine. White Sox at Pirates, and then first of all, they're home against San Francisco, and then at Pirates.
They'll be one. They'd be one of the last ones I'd cross off.
Okay, so let's hold on to that for now. Angels at Seattle, then home against Toronto. I don't think I want to do that. Dodgers, I think I'll listen to that one for a minute, but we'll get back to that.
They're on my list. I don't. I'd rather not do it, but they're on my list.
We'll get back to that for a minute, but again, I think we're not wanting to do it for different reasons. Like don't get so concerned about this week. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm very concerned about the advancing part of this because I do think it's going to be a lot of people loading the Dodgers and loading these teams that we've known have been good for a while. And while the Dodgers are certainly one of the better teams in baseball, this is not like last year where they're going to.
Well, but this is kind of my point. See, what you want to do in Survivor, right, is take teams that maybe are overrated right now. You know,
right.
so that you don't have to use them later. You know, so if you like, for example, like if you think the Dodgers are on a down year, you know, you probably want to use them. Now, I'm not saying necessarily this week, but that's kind of the mentality that you want to kind of get into.
Well, wouldn't you want to maybe not use them because everybody else's perception of them may be a little different than what they are, and they're playing? My biggest reason for the Dodgers, and again, I still have them on my list, but they're playing two division opponents that it's just high variance, and there's 4 road games. That was my main reason, but I don't think they're bad. I just don't think that you're not going to see this Dodger team win 110 games like they've been doing. You know what I mean?
Right. St. Louis versus Atlanta, no thank you.
Nope.
San Francisco versus Kansas City, and then at Chicago. No, they're out. So the Reds, we don't need to play the Reds. Right?
No,
so
no. The Reds are no. The Cubs are no.
Who do we have? So of the remaining 7, any are cross-offs for you?
Cubs for sure.
Cubs cross-offs. We talked about that. So here's a couple I want to talk about. I want to talk about Cleveland first.
Okay.
The reason why Cleveland was appealing to me is because the A's because you're probably gonna get 2 Bieber starts, right?
Right.
And yeah, the Mariners ones are going to be the tougher games, but of the tougher games, you're going to get one with Bieber. So I had that as a possible. Do you think Cleveland's possible?
I think that they're. I consider them. First of all, the Mariners I think are really good. I don't care what happened the first 3 games of the season, the first 4 games. I think the Mariners may end up being very, very, very good. Where that might be just a huge miss, like a huge. I don't know. It feels a little scary, but I do think it is extremely viable because you get the 2 Bieber starts and you get the A's like out of division, which they don't get to play as many times quite. So it's definitely interesting, these teams that are playing out of division against the worst opponents like the A's, we'll get to Tampa Bay obviously in a bit. But I'm open to the Cleveland one, but I don't feel incredible about it. I'm a little nervous about these Mariners is what I would say.
Now what about the other side of that? What about the Seattle side? So Seattle gets 3 home games against the Angels. No. Then they're at Cleveland. I don't know if I want to mess with Bieber on the other side of that.
Yeah, and I don't really want to mess with the. I mean, honestly, the Angels I think are.
And I don't want to mess with Ohtani either, right?
Yeah, I just think that they're another team that's also scary too, like the Reds.
Right. So I think that the remaining. So these 5, like so Houston, I would imagine is just like they're probably going to sweep Detroit. I imagine. So that's a good start. But let's take a look at some. So are these like 5 teams, like at least 5 of them, like that are in play, I guess?
So they're all in play for sure. It's really hard not to naturally and the thing with Tampa that we're going to have all year. The reason why I'm in favor of using them now is they're playing 2 out of division. The reason why teams like Tampa and some of these other teams don't have a higher projected total for wins on the season, which Tampa, first of all, always outperforms their wins on the season. But the reason they don't is because their division is strong. You've got the Yankees and even a declining Red Sox team, but the Blue Jays are still good and the Orioles are on the way up. So we're not going to get the Rays very often where you get 2 out of division opponents who are both considered to be in the top 5 worst baseball teams in baseball, or right there with it. You've got the Reds, the A's and the Nationals would rate to be the number 1 overall matchup for anybody. The thing that's scary about Tampa Bay is you're going to get, I think, 1 start this week from McClanahan, and I think you'll get 1 from Springs. But it's really only 1 start of each. That's the one downside to the Tampa Bay side this week.
What you've hit on is something again that you don't do Survivor, so you haven't seen these videos. But the 2 key components are, one is immediate EV, which means the chances of them winning now as a function of their popularity, plus the absence of future value. In other words, you're looking for a team that not only is going to that you're comfortable with winning now, but also one that you're pretty sure it's going to be harder to use in the future. Mm-hmm. And what you've touched on is something really important, okay? That Tampa is in a tough division, and and to get them in a situation like this where they're playing not only outside their division, but probably the two worst teams outside. I mean, like two of the worst teams in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
You're just not going to get that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like in the future out of this team. And I think that, we'll go through these other teams, but that seems like, with the exception of popularity, which I have no idea what people are doing. I really have no idea what people are taking.
I think Tampa Bay will definitely be the most popular team. But again, when are we going to get this opportunity with Tampa Bay? And right. It could be a while. And by the way, shout out to the MLB for doing it. Basically, everybody has the home and homes this week. We don't have a 6 home game stand the first week of the season. It's kind of a cool schedule. Used to having some teams start off with like 10 games in a row, 12 games in a row at home. Not happening this time.
So just for fun, let's look at some of the morning line odds of these teams that we're looking at. So it looks like the White Sox and Cleveland are definitely fringy at to say the least.
Yeah.
Houston, they're probably they're probably the second most likely. Well, I shouldn't say that. I think that Houston, Dodgers, and Tampa are probably most likely to win.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just see. Let's see what the morning lines are. Let's see these guys. Let's first look at Tampa. So Tampa's minus 165 now. See it right there. And then in their second game, they are, and Tampa, their second game is minus 175 against Chad Kuhl, right? So the other thing that we have to keep an eye on is weather, right? So I think it's probably not the worst idea in the world to let's do this. How about this? Washington, DC, AccuWeather. Just for fun.
It's a good idea, by the way.
Right?
The weather.
Let's just see. Daily, Washington, DC. Now we can't be perfect, okay? But let's just see what we have. Partly sunny and warm. Wednesday, a shower and spots. Now, shower and a thunderstorm maybe Thursday, but we'll be out of there by then, right?
Yeah.
So 3 games, maybe a shower and spots, but that's not that big of a deal. So I'm not too worried about that, but that is definitely something that breaks ties for sure. Let's take a look at the morning lines of these others. So let's just see what Houston's are. So Houston, they're minus 1,000, right? They're minus 200 game 1. And then game 2, they are, scroll here.
They'll be a big thing. They'll be the same.
And they're like minus 300, like with Valdez against Manning. So they are, and then
the problem is the second series for them.
Yeah, their problem is at Minnesota. So like you think about it this way, if they go 3-0, it's all over, right? If they go 2-1, they only need to avoid getting swept by Minnesota.
Right.
So I definitely think that they're in play. The only problem again at Minnesota, you might have weather, right?
I'll double check their thing here real quick.
But remember, we're looking for like a week in advance. The Houston, Minnesota, right? It's like
it's like 4 days down the road.
Yeah. But they might they only go 4 days ahead of time for the weather. So let's take it. So Houston versus Detroit. So they're at home against Detroit. So that's the dome. Okay, so I think that. So the way I would look at this is that I would think that Houston is, I would think probably, I want to say as likely, maybe just as likely to win as Tampa, but I think that we're going to be able to take Houston again, like later, a little easier than Tampa, where Tampa might be a little trickier, I think.
And I have to say, there's a similar argument to be made for Houston that there is for Tampa, in the sense that outside of the A's, the American League West has gotten much better. The Rangers are much better. The Angels should be better, and the Mariners are good. So you get them when they're not having to play in division against those guys, which is going to be hard to find. But other than the Seattle part of it. The problem is that is the part that does scare me a little bit. Now, am I saying Seattle's going to sweep them? No, I'm not throwing that out there. I do think that I think that they are the next most likely team that I would use. but I don't think it's by a ton over. If you wanted to gamble, the White Sox would be the gambling team, I feel like.
Dodgers, Arizona. You got the Dodgers as a minus 200 plus both games here against Colorado.
Yeah, it's tough they. I mean, they just split with Arizona in the first 4. It's just playing in Arizona. It's just that I don't feel like incredible saying the Dodgers are necessarily going to. Well, maybe all they have to do is probably win 2 of them. But
well, the cool thing is with the Dodgers, there's always going to be times where you can get the Dodgers at home against Colorado or something.
Yeah, exactly. And the NL West, outside of like one thing that's to keep in mind, though, the Diamondbacks, we've got to stop thinking of as like a really bad team. They should be considered like more of a 500 kind of a baseball team. They are not a pushover. So I don't want to be taking a not a pushover yet if I don't have to. I just think you're never going to get the matchup you're getting with Tampa Bay this week, and not to mention Tampa Bay is actually pretty good. It just outweighs everything else for me. But I hear you on the Houston argument as well.
Let's look at the White Sox first. See what this is. So White Sox, they're like pick 'em in the first game against San Francisco, and then in the second game, where are they? Down. White Sox game. I don't see them, but I know they have another game. Hold on. White Sox is playing San Francisco, right? So
yeah,
I guess there's no line yet.
Well, also that's another one. I mean, we already have weather issues today in that game.
Yeah, no, that's dead. We can't do that.
I just don't want to mess with the weather. So yeah, I mean, let's just take a quick other look here. I'm just taking a look at the. I just think I think Tampa Bay is the right thing to do, and I think Houston is the other thing that I would do.
Okay, so here's the next choice, right? So we'll get rid of Cleveland. We'll deal with what we. Boy, when are we going to get Cleveland again?
See, Cleveland's got the thing that Cleveland. Yeah, I mean that is a good question. But with the Royals and Tigers in your division, you're going to have. I haven't looked through the whole.
You'll get Cleveland at home against Detroit like a couple of times, right?
Exactly, I mean, or against the Royals. You know what I mean?
Who does Houston have in their division?
Houston has a really tough division. It's the Rangers, Angels. Well, the tough ones are the Rangers, Angels, and Mariners.
Well, that's the thing. Like if you take Houston, I mean, it's going to be hard to like have confidence against Texas unless you can avoid DeGrom, which you might be able to. Right.
But even that, I don't think Houston's that much better than Texas anyway, if at all.
Yeah. So
I think you're talking about very similar.
Right. So I think that all 3 of these teams are viable. So the question then becomes is, do you want to? We should probably. I mean, it might be a good idea to play one team in one pool.
Yep.
And the other team in the other pool. And I think that if we were going to gamble. We should probably gamble in the pool where we're allowed 1 strike,
right.
So I think that in the sadistic pool, we should probably err on the safer side and maybe take Tampa, I suppose.
Yeah, and like you said, it's very close between those 2.
Between Tampa and Houston, you're saying?
Yeah.
So why don't we do so? Let's not gamble yet on Cleveland, and we'll go Tampa and 1 and Houston in the other. So which one do you think? I mean, which do you think is more gambling?
So I can't remember the number. So one field has 160 and the other, or 180. How many players are in the other one?
Yeah. Okay. Good question. So this one has picks. This one's only got. It looks like 68. Is that right? Oh, let's see. 68, but it allows you a strike.
Right.
So they're about similar. I will say this: I definitely think this pool is definitely sharper. The Gregorius pool, yeah. And there are people with like multiple entries. You know what I mean? Like, see all these guys, and I know all these guys. So these guys all know what they're doing. So we should probably gamble a little bit more in that one. What does that mean? It doesn't.
I guess that means that's the one you play the. I mean, it still doesn't sound like it, but
if we were going to play Cleveland, for example,
if you're going to play Cleveland,
this would be the one to do it. But let's, we could still be cautious. Why don't we play Houston in this one?
Yeah, and then we'll play Tampa in the other.
And then we'll play Tampa in the other one. So hold on, let's go here. So we will pick. Remember, make sure you get right here. So we're not going to take Colorado, right? We're going to take Houston.
Mm-hmm.
Houston here, and then over here, we're going to take week 2. We're going to take the Tampa Bays. Let's just go back and let's just make sure that we have this San Diego and then Tampa Bay, and then let's just go back and confirm this. Pick recorded Houston Astros. And that's it. Now again, now Jayhawk was posting in the Discord, some thoughts, some ideas, and I mean, I'm not saying he's right or wrong. I really don't have no idea. I mean, I guess it seems right to fade stuff, but it's just so unclear.
Right.
Like who's good? You know what I mean? Like if I'm saving, you think you want to save the Dodgers, for example, but who knows? You know what I mean? Like so. Maybe it's not the worst idea to play a little bit cautious, but I do think it's very important to watch at least that one pool to save that All-Star game.
I agree with you. The only thing I can't get over is the matchup of specifically having by the consensus. There is not one of these 5 things that I've aggregated that don't have the Nationals and A's at least 5 games worse than any other team in baseball. That's the closest they have, as much as 10 games worse than every other team in baseball.
So what we're going to see, by the way, is we're going to listen. They got 13 games. You got a lot of teams to choose from this week.
Mm-hmm.
If in fact we get a whole bunch of ownership on, say, Houston and Tampa, then we're at least going to know like what kind of pool it is. You know what I mean? The people are going to be playing for immediate, win chances. And then we can have some fun. Then if we can like really project, then we can really start making some meaningful fades. But at this point, I really don't know how I was expecting even more to be on San Diego last week, and I didn't expect like all that spread out stuff in these 3 gamers. There are people that pick like 3 teamers and stuff like that. So we have to. I still think we need to probably be a little cautious.
Yeah.
Until we see what the hell's going on with these pools. So
the only thing I want to point out, though, is that of all the teams playing 4 games, only one team won 3 games. Everybody else split.
That's very interesting.
So it's just you couldn't have had anybody. I mean, sure, we felt like the Rockies. We had to because they lost the first 2. We felt like it was nerve-wracking. The Dodgers still went 2-2 against Arizona at home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they picked the Dodgers, they just happened to win the first 2 rather than the last 2. Anyway.
Yep.
So it's pretty fun. I'm excited. I'm looking forward on a lot of things, and I'm already thinking about for NBA, how are they going to do this Survivor next year? Because I think this is a really fun format. It makes you think about a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But I also think that for the future for baseball, I think it will be fun to sort of maybe spread around with a few picks and wondering how many of them you want to put in the same thing. Because I always found that very interesting between you and Brave Jayhawk. Like when he was deep, when he would go with the same team in his last 3 lineups. Even though it didn't feel like an actual as a -1 favorite, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Very, very different style than I would have thought made sense, but definitely makes sense for a guy who has really, really good reasons for it. And we're sort of figuring this out as we go, but I think we're doing a pretty good job trying to understand it at least.
All right. So make sure, Bobby, when you put this up, put it up under the Survivor playlist.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm ready to do baseball whenever you are, honestly.
Okay, just need 5 minutes after we get off, and I'll do that, and we'll be in business.
Okay, I'll end the stream though.